And the parents felt so strongly that they had sacrificed so much for their child that he must continue on this path, that he's ruining his life and his college career by giving up this activity. And I took a moment to turn to him and say, well, what do you think, Chris, about quitting? What are your reasons? And he said, I'm totally burnt out. I haven't enjoyed it for a very long time. I'm miserable. He said, but I want to fill it with other things. I want to do the things I haven't been able to do. I want to write an article for the school newspaper, and I want to join student government, and I want to help out on the yearbook. And he had these things that he felt he missed out on. There's nothing wrong with that. So there was just this feeling that the parent had this tunnel vision of what they wanted and what they expected for their teen, and they weren't letting their teen express what it was that they wanted. And so I really urge parents to really listen to and connect and engage with their teens as best they can during these really difficult years.
Hi everyone, we are Jenn Curtis and Cindy Muchnick, authors of The Parent Compass. We are so excited to be here today to talk to you about navigating your teen's wellness and academic journey in today's competitive world. I am so proud to introduce my co-author, Cindy Muchnick. So Cindy, why don't we start out with you telling us a little bit about yourself and your background?
Hi, Jen. Good to see you. So my background actually began in college admissions. So I had sat on the other side of the table as one of those friendly reviewers of admissions applications. And then my career moved into teaching and ultimately educational consulting, which is also called private college counseling. I did that for about 20 years, which is how the two of us met. And I've also written a lot of books. The Parent Compass is my most recent that we did together, but I've written about study skills, college essay writing, all of that. But this is the topic of the hour that I'm super excited to share with you. Jen, tell our viewers a little bit about you.
So as Cindy said, I am a fellow educational consultant. I came to the field with a background in mental health, specifically social work. And after having worked in severe mental health for several years, I kind of came over to the academic side because I am super passionate about working one-on-one with students and helping them to really realize their goals and live intentional lives. And so Cindy and I met, maybe about 10 years ago, and have kind of collaborated on work throughout the years. And about a year and a half ago, when the college admission scandal broke, we decided that we wanted to do something about it. We had a message that we wanted to convey, and that's how this book was born. And this message for helping families and teens live happy lives and make it through the teen years intact is what we're here to do.
And we should actually mention, I have 4 kids, so I'm also a mother, and Jen has 2 kids. So between us, we've got a half dozen. So we have experience as parents, educators, educational consultants, and really right now we want to teach you as best we can a few highlights of the Parent Compass so that we can help you parent better during these competitive times and also these tumultuous times where we're set right now with some, difficulties that we might not have anticipated this fall as we head back to school.
So the format that we're going to do today is just kind of bounce some questions off of one another. And hopefully you guys can get a little bit of an idea of the message behind the Parent Compass. And hopefully you leave with some tips to incorporate into your parenting practice.
Good. So Jen, the first thing I want to talk to my parents about, or our listeners about, if it's okay with you, would be tutoring. I get questions a lot about tutoring, and I feel like somehow tutoring, we talk about this in our book, has become an extracurricular activity. It's become what kids do after school, now virtually, but a lot of times one-on-one. Tutoring centers are just filled with students' help on homework, test prep, assignments, papers, all these things. And it seems to be, really damaging in a much bigger way that's quantifiable in the sense that kids are not used to doing work on their own, work without the help of a crutch or someone. And I'd like to tell a story about some bad parenting behavior related to this. We talk about parents and students by new names in our book. And one parent in particular that stands to mind had given me a tour about a year and a half ago of her new home and was so proud to show off to me her tutoring room, complete with dictionaries, old school encyclopedias, a full set of Cliff Notes and Spark Notes on various books, several different laptops and school items, all set for the tutors who would arrive one by one to tutor her 3 children. And I just almost, I don't know, threw up a little bit. I was really appalled. I sort of smiled and nodded and was really shocked that this room had been created in our home designated for tutoring. Not good parent compass following.
I think what we have collectively noticed over the years is that unfortunately the hyper competitive academic environment is leading families to feel like their kids need to always be at the top. And unfortunately, a byproduct that we have been noticing is a lack in self-advocacy skills. And so instead of what we're trying to help families understand is, sure, there may be a point where your child needs a tutor. Your child may be falling behind and does need some extra help. However, there are steps that you need to take before you run straight to hiring a tutor, much less a tutor in every single subject. First, students should be going to go ask their teachers. And it's so funny because when I have students come in and, oh, yes, I got a tutor in this subject and I got a tutor in this subject. Oh, well, and did you go to see your teacher first? Well, no. The number of students that have actually gone in and really sought out extra help, gone in before every test to review, gone in before a paper to go over an outline with a teacher, that needs to happen first. And that's where students learn self-advocacy skills. They learn how to speak up for themselves and ask for what they need.
In fact, parents and students feel like asking a teacher for help demonstrates some sort of lacking on the part of the student. And actually, it's totally the opposite. Teachers are there and want students to seek out their help. They're not there to punish students and have them be afraid or have them fail or whatever it might be. The teachers are there. They offer office hours. They offer their emails or places where questions can be posted. They have tutorials that they offer. You know, the teacher always the first stop. Then a peer tutor, finding someone else in the class that a student could work with, a classmate or a helper, is another way. Many schools, or an older sibling can help. Study skills centers are also on school campuses, places where older students hang out, and they do these virtually now too. So where older students are waiting to help the younger students in the courses that the older students have already taken. So there's a lot of steps to take. The tutor should really be the last resort, not the first choice. And really, when there's that big a disconnect, families even ask the teacher. The students will say, do you recommend I get a tutor? Should I get some extra help beyond here? And then a lot of times teachers will either give a name or even give an older student that they recommend that the student, go to help reach out. So this over tutoring is just, there's not a lot of great things that can come out of it. Now, if a student is flailing and really just hitting a wall or has a major disconnect with the teacher or doesn't have that kind of support and the family can't help them with calculus, then that might be a time to start with a tutor once a week, not 3 times a week, just you start once a week and you build up if you need it. And the goal should be to wean off of the tutor.
Yeah. So we're going through obviously a very uncertain time that, the writing of our book technically predates the pandemic, but what we say in the book is really evergreen. It really is pertinent maybe now more than ever. And so I'd love to switch gears for a second and maybe we can give some advice to families out there who are panic-stricken, potentially not really knowing how to navigate this new environment. Whereas, college admission was competitive even before the pandemic, but oh my goodness, there's so much out of our control now. What do we do? So I think my biggest piece of advice for families who are really struggling through this time and not knowing how to navigate would be there is so much right now that is out of our control. And so I would really urge families to focus on what they can do. Focus on those things that are within their control and not dwell on those things that can't. If you can't test, that's out of your control. Focus on the other parts of your application that are in your control. As an example, maybe get creative about your activities. Sure, many activities have been canceled right now, but there's room to be creative. If you are musically inclined and a lot of the music related activities at your school have been canceled, maybe you decide that you're going to give virtual music lessons to kids in your community. Maybe you decide to start some sort of music program where you're cheering local senior citizens up once a week. You Zoom with the local senior center and you play music that way. There are a lot of things that students can do if they get creative and think outside the box and focus on what they can do.
And parents, brainstorm with your teens. Don't feel that they have to come up with these ideas, but also don't push an idea on them. You can brainstorm together ways to use their existing talents. I have a student that I'd worked with that really likes football kicking. That's his thing. And he found a younger student who wants to learn how to kick. So it's an activity that they can wear masks, go outside, do it one-on-one before the weather changes, and work on this skill that an older student can teach a younger student. And that can count as community service. That can count as a job if it's paid. And, I think that looking at alternatives, this panic of, yes, if you can't take the standardized test when you wanted to, or, all this pivoting that we need to do, there are places in every college application where you can explain what limitations you've had, in your high school experience that have maybe made you have to make other choices that were different than you would have already chosen. So colleges understand this. And if anything, everyone's trying to sort of downplay the amount of pressure we need to put on our kids, because this whole new way of learning, is so different and so pressure filled and so isolating that, colleges aren't looking to be punitive in the process. They're looking to kind of understand, and be empathetic that this is what's happening.
Yeah. And on that note, I think there is intentionally room in kids' applications to communicate what has gone on during this time. So if a kid has had to pick up a bunch of extra family responsibilities, make sure that they convey that on their applications. If they are responsible for the childcare of their siblings because their siblings are having to do virtual school while the parents go out and work, convey that. That's an activity. Don't leave schools to have to guess. Offer them as much information as you can, even when they are maybe non-traditional activities.
Yeah. Jen, I'd like to maybe also point out a story about kind of some parenting bad behavior that I think could also change, like the parent that created the tutoring room. I also remember witnessing a parent, this was on a family trip, and we happened to be on the same tour on this trip. And it was the parents of an only child who we had just met at the same activity. And they started to tell us how their son had been a diver since he was 3 years old. And they had spent all these resources and all these hours and all these years on his diving talent. And he was now coming up to his senior year. And his parents revealed to us that he had decided he was quitting diving. And they were not okay with that. First of all, they were communicating all this to basic strangers. So clearly it was a point of contention. And the poor teenager sitting between his two parents on this bus was just rolling his eyes and turning red and just very uncomfortable. And the parents felt so strongly that they had sacrificed so much for their child, that he must continue on this path, that he's ruining his life and his college career by giving up this activity. And I took a moment to turn to him and say, well, what do you think, Chris, about quitting? What are your reasons? And he said, I'm totally burnt out. I haven't enjoyed it for a very long time. I'm miserable. I don't even want to put on a swimsuit and go near water. He said, but I want to fill it with other things. I want to do the things I haven't been able to do. I want to write an article for the school newspaper, and I want to join student government, and I want to help out on the yearbook. And he had these things that he felt he missed out on. And to me, as a parent and as a college counselor, putting both hats on, there's nothing wrong with that. So there was just this feeling that the parent had this tunnel vision of what they wanted and what they expected for their teen, and they weren't letting their teen express what it was that they wanted. And so I really urge parents to really listen to and connect and engage with their teens as best they can during these really difficult years.
Yeah, and I think that's a great segue into a big part of our book, and maybe something that we can leave parents with, which is we have many tools that we've incorporated into the Parent Compass to help you really take a long, hard look at why you parent the way that you do. Why is it so important to you that your kid keep diving when they don't want to? Why is that, your battle to fight? And so we actually take an entire chapter asking parents very pointed questions to really get them thinking about the way they grew up and how that influences the way that they're parenting and how they're looking at their kids and their accomplishments. And so we really hope that you take a look at these questionnaires that we've carefully formulated to really take a deep, hard look at the way you parent and why you choose to do the things that you do, ultimately with the goal of being very freeing and making some changes and being brave in doing that.
And I would just conclude with Jen to let our viewers know that in this book, not only are we sharing our insights from years and years of working with hundreds and hundreds of teens and their families in extension, but we've called on thought leaders, educational experts, heads of school, teachers, counselors, so many smart psychologists, and we've culled all of their research as well and included a lot of support for the things that we're also trying to teach when we teach this movement that's the Parent Compass. So we hope some of the ideas today have given you some things to think about. We hope that they make you want to go out and take a gander at this book, which comes out on September 15th. And Jen, would you mind sharing some of our social media of how people might find the book or be able to follow along with the activities that we're doing?
Yeah, so you can find us on Instagram at Parent Compass, on Facebook at The Parent Compass, on LinkedIn. Our name is Cindy Muchnick and Jenn Curtis, and our website is parentcompassbook.com. And we really want to thank Smart Social for letting us guest host today. This has been super fun, and we're hoping that you guys have learned something that you can incorporate into your parenting practice.
Thanks for joining us today, and thank you, Smart Social. It's been a lot of fun, and we look forward to continuing with you.